But speaking of money, which is the economic prepper, it's time to turn the page to crypto. Okay, so we got a couple crypto stories that come out. The first one, our favorite anti-hero, SBF. He's in the news yet again, charged with funneling $40 million this time to bribe off CCP officials. Imagine that.
What?
So, yeah. So it's amazing that he's resurfaced again, and he's got this charge. I don't, guys, who wants to pick this one up and run with it?
Someone explain this.
Is he in jail? Is he in jail right now, or is he not in jail?
No, he's out walking around. He got bailed out because his parents put up bail money on their house that he bought.
Wasn't it hundreds of million? Wasn't it like 150 million or something? His bail was.
Yeah, but
like
they
5 million, or I don't remember what it was like in terms of the money they put up.
Yeah, the amount that they put up was a small token. Normally it's 10% for bail, and they put way less, and they still let him walk out because, again, rules aren't the same for everybody.
Yeah,
but he's out there, and there were guys that's just like, hey, this didn't. Some people noticed it. Patrick, you noticed the SBF thing early on, and that the FTX thing didn't look right for months. You were on Twitter talking about it for months.
Yeah, because they had like 10 times as much of the leverage calls that the other Binance had. Binance was 10 times bigger. It's like, how do you lose 10 times more money than Binance?
I don't see any problem with having all these millennials with no experience in charge of millions of dollars. What's the problem? Billions. I mean, it's worked well for Alameda. It worked well for Silicon Valley Bank. So I don't know what the problem is here.
Silvergate.
It's not working well, though. It's not working well for Silicon Valley. It's not working well for Alameda. It's not working well for SBF. It's not working well for Sung Soo, who Justin Sun. That's his name, Justin Sun, who said, Hey, I don't even know why you're arresting me. Everyone else has treated me so kindly. Like, oh, really? Did you guys forget Terra Luna? Does that ring a bell? Like, you don't, all of this stuff is ridiculous. They walk around in broad daylight doing the same thing the current banking system is doing now. SBF is doing nothing other than greasing the pockets of the regulators and the authorities who are supposed to be holding him accountable. It's China. It's the Democratic National Republic over here. It could be anybody. We have Oregon senators and governors who take money from SBF. Everyone is getting their pocket buttered up by SBF. All of these people are just evil humans doing the same exact thing that we're seeing happen in the current banking system, which is deception, betrayal, and collusion. Yes, Robert Kiyosaki, if you're watching, I quoted you. You're welcome, because that's exactly what they're doing.
Well, Dylan, I heard you mention Do Kwon, so I'll give you the last word in this story. Here's a couple of little clips. Do Kwon was back in the news this way as well. You want to throw that out there?
Yeah, he was finally arrested. Finally, right? These guys just like were able to set up.
Why?
They're just able to set up money printing operations, just massive value extraction operations. And they're like, oh, but I didn't know that was the structure. And it's like, how do you not know? Like, that's what you're doing. That you're literally just printing money. You're stealing from people. Anyone that you bring in to use,
caught with a passport that wasn't even his name, and he was like, I don't know what you're arresting me for.
Did it say McLovin?
I don't know. What is that? Is that a joke that's going over my head again, Jeff?
Yes, it is.
I mean, it's probably smart to deny, like, don't say things. Don't say things that will incriminate yourself. So it's probably better. I don't know.
Looking for this guy since Terra Luna has collapsed, and he is like tweeting saying he's not hiding, but everyone's like, then where are you?
Yeah.
And he lands and he says, yeah, but everyone else has treated me really, really kindly and rolled out the red carpet for me. I don't understand why you're arresting me.
I'm going to help. Before our next Patrick, I'll help out Patrick here. That was a reference to the movie Superbad, where McLovin got a fake ID. So most people remember that famous fake ID movie. It's a Seth Rogen movie, Patrick. Put it on your movie list. But our next story is from Dylan, and he found another crypto story from one of our favorite people on Capitol Hill, Elizabeth Warren. So, Dylan, I'll let you just decipher this for us a little bit.
Well, this was going all on the Twitter webs about Elizabeth Warren's anti-crypto army. And so if you read down in the article, And if you've been paying attention to Elizabeth Warren over the past few years, she's definitely been one of the most vocal on speaking out against crypto and Bitcoin. She lumps them all in together, which I think is a mistake to not have nuance about that at this point in time. And anyways, but I think this stemmed from the bill that was going to ban TikTok and the implications of that bill.
Yeah.
So I think these are, because you mentioned it a little bit earlier about the TikTok ban or potential ban, Jeff. And so I think it's linked to that. But I think an interesting thing to think about here is, when will we see political candidates start aligning themselves for crypto or Bitcoin and against it? And in order to go after the single issue voters that are arising, because I know many people in the Bitcoin community are starting to become more and more single issue voters, specifically around is the candidate pro Bitcoin, and what is their stance on crypto? And I think that's going to be something playing out over the next few years, 2, 4, 6 years. So something to pay attention to.
Yeah, that's a great point. I think that we're already hearing a lot of people on Capitol Hill for or against, a lot against the CBDC. So it's a natural progression of another issue. Where's your stance on central bank digital currencies? Well, what about in general about digital currencies? So it's a natural progression of the conversation.
Well, if I could just jump in on something there, Dylan, that I think is really interesting is they always piggyback and they're sliding Bitcoin. They're paralleling it along with primary targets. And later on in the article, it says, although the primary targets of this legislation are companies like TikTok, the language of the bill could potentially be used to block or disrupt cryptocurrency transactions and, in extreme cases, block Americans' access to open source tools and protocols like Bitcoin. This is what it's going after. TikTok is just part of this. They're playing nice with it, yet they're paralleling these components to be able to potentially shut them down or rework them. And that's the part where Bitcoin really shines, is its ability to stay stealthy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you're exactly right. And I want to pose this question to you guys real quick, because it was brought up. I was talking to someone, and I was like, mentioning Bitcoin and how it's one of those assets that's almost impossible to seize for anyone to take it from you. And they're like, well, the government can just come in and seize it, right? And in my mind, I'm like, this person doesn't quite understand how it works. So I want to pose that to you guys. Like, what's the feasibility or possibility of the government coming in and taking your Bitcoin? Like, what would they look like? How would they do that? Is it possible?
Yes, it's always possible. They have to stick a needle in my arm and have truth serum.
So they got to get you physically.
I actually just talked about this in a recent story that I just did. I don't remember. I think it probably is the one I did today, which took me 4 takes. So that's always fun. But the concern for me is not the coins; it's the network. The network is what the network ties it all together. And if you have a decentralized network that's governless, then you're safe from government seizure, even if they get a portion of it. China's banned mining before, but yet they still make miners. It's kind of funny, but no country or even their allies could combine to get 51% of the network in control and make changes. So that's what we have to watch out for. So it's actually a positive for governments to have Bitcoin, because if they're holding assets like a Bitcoin, they want to see the asset go up and increase. So they would protect the network. If they start seizing mining facilities and trying to control the network that way, that's where I'd be concerned.
Yeah, so you're basically saying they can't get your Bitcoin necessarily as an individual. It'd be very hard to do at scale, but they'd probably make a coordinated attack on the network as a whole to make holders lose confidence and the value plummet, or the viability.
No, I mean, I wouldn't say that, because I think if we really took into account what the government is capable of doing, it wouldn't be hard to think of some kind of Windows attack that scans for Exodus wallets or Trust wallets information or other kind of data that relate to your seed phrase. And with AI right now, it wouldn't even surprise me that it could be done so quickly all over the world. So I'm not saying that it's impervious to attack. I believe that the way you store your keys is really critical for these types of risks. So you can't really eliminate the risk, but you could definitely try to, just soften the blow, I guess what you would say. So things like Ballet Wallet, yeah, Dylan, those tools work differently than other tools. You don't want to store your private seed phrase somewhere else. And that is how one way of vector of attack. Imagine, for example, Dylan, what if they were able to get into the iOS systems?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we rely on iOS being such a strong tool for us and that they take security seriously. We believe that about Apple. But I mean, it's always not a possibility until it is. What about if something happens to Bobby Lee? The idea of a trustless wallet truly means that you have to create it yourself. And even that Ballet wallet is truly not trustless. Bobby Lee himself would tell you the same thing. You have to trust him, that he is not evil. And you have to trust him on the second fact that he's competent, that he knows how to develop the tool correctly. But the only way that you can guarantee full sovereignty of that asset is if you create the private key and you store it in a way where no one else can access it. Even your own wife couldn't get it unless they gave you truth serum.
Yeah, I like to talk when I was talking about it earlier, and it's a little early for the history part, but the analogy I drew was 1933, right? In the United States, a lot of people stored value in physical gold and they kept it in safe deposit boxes. Well, in 1933, the economy, imagine that, was having issues, and FDR made it illegal for people to own gold. So he confiscated it all. He compensated people for it. I think the going rate was like $14 an ounce. He gave people $21. So for a moment, they were happy. But then he went to revalue all the gold, including when he confiscated, to $35 and improved the value of the purchasing power of the dollar as a result. But the people that had it before lost out from that $21 to $35 profit. Now take that story, replace gold with the network or Bitcoin. I think that the network is probably the best analogy. Like if they went and stole all that from you, that's when they could seize it. But if they're going to start attacking and taking over the network or like taking over facilities that are doing mining, you got to be like, what is their alternative plan? If they're attacking Bitcoin, then clearly they have some other currency in mind, probably the CBDC that they're going to promote instead.
I know, but it's just not that ridiculous to think that someone could hack in, reprogram 75 facilities at one time and take control of the hash rate. I'm not saying it's easy to do, but I'm saying,
especially with AI,
a coordinated attack when you already know that you have backdoors open. I'm sure someone who is more intelligent than me could hypothesize a scenario in which it could be possible, especially if you take over a significant amount of the infrastructure from large mining facilities like all the core scientifics of the world and the Bitmain testing facility all at the same time at the same block, and it's a done deal.
I mean, it's
not unreasonable.
The conversation is already starting right now with all the AI and chat GPT coming out. There's a lot of technology saying like, hey, let's pause for a minute before this gets too crazy here. But can you imagine, it's like, how far away from Jarvis or the computer from Star Trek and just say, like, look, hey, Jarvis, can you just go and do a 51% attack on Bitcoin? Can we coordinate that? How far away are we from that? But Jesse, you have a point?
Far away. Very far away because of cryptography and the nature of cryptography. Very far away. In my opinion, I'm just saying, I'm not ruling out the hypothetical, could Bitcoin have an issue in the future? I see a hypothetical scenario where Bitcoin is not our savior. Okay, that's all I'm saying.
Yeah. Jesse?
I'm going to show you this because I printed this off for the show I was doing today. I'll see if you can read it. Can anyone read this?
Kind of.
Yeah. Paper is poverty. It is the ghost of money and not money itself. Thomas Jefferson.
So what is the CBDC? Is it money? Is it the ghost of physical money? It's almost even a further stretch, but this is where and I was going someplace with this and I just lost my train of thought.
Precious metals?
Yeah, we were talking about precious metals. God. Man, it was good too. It comes back to me.
We'll come back to that. Yeah. We'll come back. But one other point about the Apple. I mean, start to look at things. Apple, the iPhone has been around about as long as the Bitcoin. It's something it's interesting that they have about the same age. Just something to point out.
I was gonna say.
I think we have one more crypto story to talk about, and this was the tweet that we were sharing about Litecoin there, Patrick.
Oh yeah, that was really cool because we've talked for a while about Bitcoin being recognized clearly in the United States as a commodity, and it's not in the purview of the Securities and Exchange Commission. But then you have the CFTC that comes out and says, hey, Litecoin is also a commodity. And not only did they mention Litecoin, but they also mentioned Ether, Bitcoin Cash, and I believe Binance USD and USD Tether, if I'm not mistaken. So they came out and defined all of those and other assets as commodities. Really, really interesting story because it seems like no one can get their crap together, can they? The SEC doesn't agree with the IRS. It doesn't agree with the Fed. And it doesn't agree with the Commodities Exchange. Like, no one can agree on this cryptocurrency. And we have a ton of turbulence in the area, but it seems like right now, the narrative is pretty much set for XRP's lawsuit to finish here. They've got no expert witnesses. I believe XRP is going to slam dunk this. And then here we go having this idea that the government is now telling us we believe Litecoin and Ethereum and USDT and BUSD are commodities. So they're trying to tell us those 5 are safe. Jeff, let me tell you this. I'm going to make a comment and you try not to laugh. USDT is safe. See, that was pretty good because I don't think that it's hard for me to like take it seriously. USDT is far from safe. We don't know what's behind door number 1 or door number 37. And with the banks failing the way they are, it's really interesting that the government is trying to paint a narrative towards USDT and BUSD when we know what's going on with Binance right now. And we know CZ is trying to move his money out of Binance USD. So what I'm talking about here is what are they setting us up for? I understand this is good for the Litecoin community, and I love hearing that they consider this. But the question is, why now? And why are they saying this here? And why are they all over the map? Very interesting topic to talk about in the news.
Yeah, it's really interesting. It's interesting that they throw 2 stable coins in the mix there that are tied to the US dollar. I think that with the narrative that they're trying to create is like, let's take 2 that are not Coinbase related at the top and say, hey, like this is good, like stable dollar. Yeah, sure. Well, I think it's positive news for stable coins a little bit because they want to promote the digital dollar. I think that's really the narrative that they're working with because nothing is stable about the dollar. That's the biggest problem with the fact that they say stable coin. There's nothing stable about the dollar. What they should be tying Bitcoin and Litecoin to are gold and silver. That's what they should be tying to, real money, because if you take those 4, Bitcoin and Litecoin is essentially a copy of Bitcoin. It's never gone down. It's going to have a halving soon. So it's actually a sleeping giant. I think 9 months away into it's going to cut the supply in half again. It's never gone down. It's a copy of Bitcoin. It's basically the same thing, except it's 4 times faster and there's 4 times as many. But it's aside from that, it's the same thing. And there's no CEO. Bitcoin and Litecoin have no CEO to attack either one.
Wow.
Yeah, I think you mentioned something with Tether, Patrick. That is
they're garbage, and I think it's a setup. Why are they rushing people to Tether? Like, stay away from it. Don't believe them.
Well, that's a string that hasn't we've talked about. People have been talking about Tether, and does it really have the assets to support the tokens issued, and everyone's like, no, it doesn't. And they've been opaque with this, and that's like the one domino that people seem to believe that if they topple that, it'll crumble so much in the ecosystem, and they haven't toppled it yet. So why haven't they? And I guess the question is, when will they really try? And what would be the implications?
They're trying right now by telling us that USDT is safe. Like, what the heck are you talking about? Who wants USDT? Who thinks it's a commodity? It's definitely not a commodity. No one wants it. We sit there if we have to have it.
It just happened to be the first one on the table, just like Ether was the first smart contract platform. Doesn't mean it's the best.
Yeah, this is definitely something we want to keep our eye on. But what I'm telling you guys here, if you see this story, it's big news for Litecoin. keep your eyes open because there's a lot of untruth mixed in.
Mhm.